So talk about that. So why do you need to go that extra step?
Well, for us, I mean, our focus is entirely on Japan. So I think for Ju, I mean, she's covering Asia, or I mean, that's a whole other panel discussion. What is Asia, right? But I mean, our focus is entirely on Japan. So I mean, most of our research is done by going out on the street and experiencing Tokyo. I mean, Tokyo is a small place, right? It's small, but it's big, or big, but it's small. But it's one of the two, but it works either way. Because I mean, you go outside and you can notice things really immediately with such a high concentration of people. So most of our research is done in office. I mean, not like with our office staff, or we also have freelancers. For example, like I said, a fashion specialist, since I'm not the most fashionable person in the world. But well, thanks. But
in a suit, mate. I think it's pretty good.
Dressed to impress, right?
But
but in Japan in particular, I mean, our focus is Japan, right? So there are so many different places that you can get information from. It's impossible to cover them all. We go to expos, for example, or in the fashion realm, there's a show called Tokyo Girls Collection, which is run by an agency called Zabel. And basically you can see what is in fashion just by going to this one event and seeing what Tokyo girls are into.
Mm-hmm. So why hire C-Scout then?
So why hire? Yeah. Well, I think because it's a matter of providing context. Like you said on blogs, there are so many Japan blogs out there, and just blogs in general. People are just reporting on something they saw that day. They report on their lunch or something, you know, but there's no context. And so our job is to provide the context. I mean, we can show something to someone and they go, yeah, so what? Yeah, that's great. I can use my phone to buy a snack at the convenience store, but big deal, you know. So we provide either cultural context or cross-industry ideas.
Thanks, Michael. I think you helped me with my answer as well.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I think the reason that my inspiration for setting up the Asia Scout Network, Mindshare's inspiration too, was to find that context for the local context of how the trends that are coming. A lot of the trends are coming from the West, but we're not sure how well they fit in or how to adapt it to the local context. So this is where we need to. This is, you know, the Scout Network actually tries to capture consumer vibes, you know, related to youth culture in Asia, which might or might not reflect the trends that are happening in the West.
Yeah, another important part of what we do is getting people also on the ground. So I mean, we've been doing reports for years, and for big clients, and sending them to, you know, you send it abroad, and they get in, they go, and they have maybe a meeting about it for 15 minutes, and that's it. It disappears off into the void, right? But we started about 6 years ago. We started having companies who wanted to actually bring their people to Tokyo and experience what they're getting in these reports. So we started doing what we call trend tours. It's kind of a trendy word, but it's trend tours.
Sounds good.
Sure, it's trendy. But, and so they actually will send, like, their innovation department, for example, send 15 people to Japan. We spend a week setting up meetings with them and with relevant companies and just getting out on the street and showing them firsthand, you know, that you can use your phone to buy something and why it's important, but in person. This is the most important thing.
I'm going to come back and actually ask you both about, to give the audience some advice about maybe setting up their own trend tour, maybe setting up their own Scout network. But maybe first and now, I mean, who looks for trends in your agency? Is it the planning department or?
Is the planning department?
Uh-huh.
And you know this, we do it slightly differently, which is that rather than trends, we are looking at, we call ourselves the change agency and call ourselves change agents. So we are looking at changes, and out of those changes, looking for change points. You know, irreversible changes that are happening very silently in societies at large, in people's relationships. For example, in India, there were many generations which lived with a certain set of values, certain set of cultural values, almost Brahminical in the way they lived. Brahminical way of living, which was the priestly class way of living. And the shift is now taking place to Kshatriya or the warrior class. The youth of today is not overtly kind of rejecting those values, were working with them, but are coming up with their own set of values in the way they look at relationships, the way they look at careers, the way they look at their day-to-day lives. So these silent shifts that are happening, this is what our planners are constantly looking at. And I think that becomes hugely, it's a huge asset for us creative people. You know,
how do they actually present it to you? I mean, we talk about the trend tours, that
Yep.
immersion process. How are they going to get you guys excited and actually?
I mean, I'll give you an example. We were working with Virgin Mobile in India. They entered India last year, and they were CDMA in terms of their platform versus GSM. So they were cheaper phones, cheaper services, and they wanted to target youth, the Indian youth. And one insight that the planners came up with after a lot of hard work was that Indian youth currently are, they are bypassing this firewall of sanction. They are not overtly head-on taking it on, not rejecting it, but they're looking at ways to manipulate, parental pressures or parental values. And this is what they presented through examples from feature films. Feature films in India are reflecting some of the changes that are happening, like in many countries. Clippings from newspapers, researches or videos, one-to-one interviews with people. And not only that, it's like collecting all that information and distilling it down to that one single statement, which in the Virgin Mobile case was, it's all about bypassing the firewall of sanction. That means being a little manipulative. So from there, the idea that I came up with, the idea that the teams came up with was, it sounds like Apple, think different, but in this case it was think hatke, which is in any given situation that you are faced with, you find a slightly clever way out of it. And that really has gone down very well with the audience. There are 3 films running right now in India on Virgin Mobile, the brand films. And when you go to the YouTube or agency facts, the advertising sites, and when you read comments like, ooh, funny, I love it, this is me. That's when you realize that it's working. I mean, just to give you an example of one of the films, there's this girl who comes home and she goes in front of her parents, and parents look like kind of very conservative types, and she looks at them and says, Dad, Mom, I want to tell you something. So they said, what? And she sits down and she says, I don't like guys. I've got no interest in men. So the father turns to the mother and says, it's all because of you. Why didn't you let her play with guys, when she was young? So mother turns around and says, no, it's your fault. You are the one who sent her to an all-girls school. Right? So she's like watching. Suddenly her phone rings and she picks up the phone and says, hello? Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not interested. No. So the father and mother are listening. And the father says, who was that? And he says, some boy from my management class. So he says, so why didn't you talk to him? So she says, no, he was asking me to come to Goa with him. So go, Betty, go. It's good to go. It's good. I mean, you need to be social. And mother says, but she'll go alone to Goa. She says, shut up, he's a boy. Yeah. And then cut to the next scene and the girl says, hey Rahul, Goa plan is fixed. Right? And it says, Virgin Mobile, think hatke, which is think different. So I think this whole campaign came out of this really, really strong insight, which was obviously after a lot of thinking and